Y'all, this isn't just turmoil. This is humiliation on a scale no one saw coming. Because what allegedly happened behind closed doors didn't simply fracture Claressa's defenses or dent Papoose's narrative. It destroyed it outright. Sources say Claressa didn't accidentally brush up against suspicion. She walked straight into proof. A whisper, a saved image, and one name resurfacing again and again, like a shadow that refused to fade. Tiki. And in that instant, insiders claim everything inside her gave way. The man she defended publicly. The man she allegedly went to war with Remy over. The man she insisted was unshakable. Allegedly, he was already emotionally gone. Behind the stage smiles, behind the all is well captions, behind the illusion of safety, Papoose was reportedly directing his attention elsewhere. And while Claressa continued performing loyalty for the audience, fear quietly set in. Because those close to her say Claressa realized something devastating. Papoose wasn't drifting. He had already decided. And this is where the story reportedly turns darker. Allegedly, Claressa didn't plead casually or just once. She begged him not to leave. Phone calls, texts, emotional spirals. We can fix this. Please don't do this. We still have something. But here's the detail no one wants to face. By the time those pleas were made, she was no longer the priority. Because Papoose had allegedly already crossed the line. And Tiki wasn't rumor or speculation. She was the next chapter. While Claressa kept smiling under the spotlight, insiders claim she was unraveling behind closed doors, holding on to something that had already ended. And then Remy breaks her silence. No comfort. No sympathy. Just blunt truth. She allegedly tells Claressa exactly what she says she warned her about years ago. He takes from women. He drains them. And then he disappears. Strap in, because this isn't a slow simmer. This story seizes you by the collar, bolts the exits, and forces you to witness every ruthless second as it caves in. What started as faint murmurs hardened into receipts, and what once appeared untouchable splintered under a truth Claressa Shields was never meant to face. Allegedly, there was no explosive confession, no public breakdown that cracked it wide open.
It was colder than that. Sharper.
A quiet detail repeating where it didn't belong. A trail too consistent to ignore, pointing back to Tiki. Those close to the situation say that single name dropped the temperature instantly. Claressa didn't just feel uneasy. She allegedly realized she had arrived late to a story already advancing without her. While camera lenses captured confidence and captions sold calm, something had shifted off-screen. The man she believed was locked in wasn't drifting. He had already switched lanes. Papoose, publicly framed as steady, composed, and devoted, was allegedly moving very differently behind the curtain. Not messy. Not impulsive. Calculated. Quiet. Intentional. And insiders say Claressa sensed the change before she could put words to it. Calls rang longer. Replies grew shorter. Familiar warmth cooled into formality, almost polite, like someone already packing up emotionally. That's when fear reportedly surfaced, because this wasn't just about affection anymore. It was about leverage, optics, and ego. Claressa Shields is synonymous with command, not collapse. Authority, not appeal. Yet sources allege that once she grasped the possibility that Papoose was choosing elsewhere, the foundation cracked. The poise splintered. The armor slipped. And then, allegedly, the line was crossed. She pleaded, not publicly, not performatively, but in the unseen spaces that never reach a feed. Messages stacked up.
Calls.
Follow-up calls. Emotional reach-outs that didn't sound like a champion speaking. They sounded like someone terrified of being replaced. Insiders say she asked him to stay, to fix it, to remember what they'd built. She tried to pull him back from a situation that, by then, may have already been decided. Because here's the ruthless truth no one wanted to say out loud. By the time Claressa started fighting for the bond, it may have already ended. Sources allege Papoose had moved past the gray area. Not hovering. Not testing. Fully engaged. And Tiki wasn't just an online echo. She was allegedly the new focus, the one receiving time, the one receiving priority, the one chosen while Claressa was being managed. And still, on the surface, everything appeared intact.
Posts continued.
Appearances carried on. The narrative held. Normalcy was sold. But those watching closely say the display felt strained. Smiles stopped short. Movements stiffened. Chemistry felt rehearsed. What the public saw no longer matched what was allegedly unfolding in private. That gap is where the disgrace settled. Because Claressa wasn't just dealing with loss, she was allegedly watching herself become the last to know. The woman defending a man who had already pivoted, standing strong in daylight while quietly unraveling after dark. The optics were brutal, and Papoose's silence magnified them. No pushback. No reassurance. No clarity. Just absence. And then the tone darkened even further when Remy stepped into the frame. Not softly. Not carefully. But with the energy of someone who had been waiting for the truth to finally surface. According to insiders, Remy didn't speak from jealousy. She spoke from experience because allegedly she recognized the pattern, had lived it, and survived it. When Remy finally addressed the situation, sources say there was no warmth in her tone, no comforting language. What followed was a cold mirror held up to Claressa, a reminder that warnings had been issued and ignored. Remy allegedly made one thing unmistakably clear: none of this was surprising. It was inevitable. She had cautioned Claressa to keep her distance, to stop fighting battles that weren't hers, to stop defending a man known for turning opportunity into leverage. But Claressa, allegedly driven by emotion and pride, held her ground. She challenged Remy. She chose Papoose anyway. And now, according to those close to Remy, there would be no softening of the message. Because from Remy's perspective, Claressa didn't just endure infidelity. She was exploited. Exploited for access. Exploited for optics. Exploited for financial comfort. Exploited for validation. And the moment a new option appeared, the switch allegedly flipped without hesitation. That allegation cut deeper than any rumor because if true, it redefined everything. The appearances, the timing, the emotional imbalance. What once looked like affection began to resemble a transaction. What felt like partnership started to look like positioning. Insiders say that realization struck Claressa like a verdict delivered in public. Every post became evidence. Every smile scrutinized. Every appearance dissected. Commentators began pointing out the exhaustion, the fragility. Claressa ignored it, publicly challenged her, and went to war over a man who was already repositioning, Remy allegedly observed instead of reacting. That context matters because when Remy finally addressed it, it wasn't impulsive. It was reflective. She reportedly questioned the timeline not to seek answers, but to signal she already had them. She pointed out behavioral shifts. Changes in access. Moments where Claressa appeared to be investing emotionally and materially into something quietly decaying behind her back. That's where the story slid from heartbreak into humiliation, because insiders allege Remy implied Claressa wasn't just emotionally involved. She was materially entangled.
Time.
Labor. Resources. Image. All poured into a man who was allegedly already planning his exit. And when the outcome, according to public perception, was clear, Claressa was left holding a narrative that no longer belonged to her. And what made it worse was the absence of contradiction. Papoose stayed silent, and that silence wasn't neutral. It functioned as consent. Not legal consent. Not moral consent. But narrative consent, the kind that allows speculation to harden into assumption. In high-profile fallout, silence doesn't pause the story. It chooses the loudest version. And Remy didn't need to speak again to dominate the room. Her earlier warnings now replayed with a tone of inevitability. Not bitterness. Not spite. Just grim accuracy. A truth that stings more because it doesn't gloat. Those close to her say Remy didn't chase validation. She didn't need to. The events did that for her. What shifted in this final phase wasn't just opinion. It was empathy. But not in Claressa's favor. It shifted away from her. Viewers who once admired her strength now questioned her judgment. Support didn't vanish overnight. It thinned, and thinning is far more dangerous than outright backlash because it leaves no clear enemy to fight. And thinning support is far more dangerous than outright backlash because it leaves no obvious enemy to confront. Inside that vacuum, Claressa was reportedly forced to face something she had avoided from the start: the possibility that this wasn't bad luck. It wasn't betrayal. It was miscalculation. Insiders say that realization hit hardest when the performances no longer worked. When smiles failed to redirect questions. When proximity couldn't quiet rumors. When loyalty stopped being assumed and instead began to be audited. Because in the end, the humiliation wasn't the alleged begging. It wasn't the alleged affair. It wasn't even the public warnings. It was the loss of control over her own story. She no longer dictated how it was told. She couldn't decide what mattered. And every attempt to reclaim that control only emphasized how far it had slipped. The tragedy deepened when sympathy became conditional. People began asking not what happened to her, but what she ignored.